But the thing is not talking now. It's not. I can't hear anything.
I'm not saying
At least I suppose to hear home sound now.
it. Are you here?
Change this one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wait.
You don't offer. Ebuka, they call you. We can hear you. We can hear you. I beg, bring this thing come closer. Mm-hmm.
Now, why would they ask you for a meeting with your challenge? Let's know how to help you. Hmm? From the con, instead of computer, I see what you do in the con.
Where's our makeup artist, I beg? Welcome to Midday News on Signature Television. I'm Charles Pius. In the headlines, Iranian rocket hit elementary school in Israel. U.S. calls on every nation to join it in condemning Iran's attack on Israel. State Department says 150 passengers still missing in Niger boat mishap. And federal government distributes 2,000 CNG-powered tricycles to use. Details in a moment. My my interview, is it on it? My interview with Oga, is it on the news? Okay, don't worry. I said my interview in the news. My interview with Oga is in the news.
I don't know.
My interview with
Yeah,
Oga is in the news. Okay.
It's number 8.
Okay. A rocket from the salvo of ballistic missiles that were fired at Israel on Tuesday hit an elementary school in Gedera, an Israeli town in southern Israel. Rescue services officers and workers were seen at the site, clearing the area. The rockets fired at by Iran in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's Hezbollah allies in Lebanon were seen over the West Bank in different locations. And meanwhile, flight schedules to head through Iranian airspace were diverted amidst conflicts between Israel and Iran overnight from Tuesday to Wednesday in the wake of an Iranian missile attack on Israel. Israel's neighbors closed airspace and airline crews skirted an escalating conflict with many seeking diversions after Iran fired a salvo of ballistic missiles at Israel on Tuesday in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's Hezbollah allies in Lebanon, and Israel vowed a painful response against its enemy. A spokesperson for tracking service Flight Radar 24 said flights diverted anywhere they could, and a snapshot of regional traffic showed flights spreading in wide acres to the north and south, with many converging on Cairo and Istanbul. The latest disruptions are expected to deal a further blow to an industry already faced curbs due to conflicts between Israel and Hamas and Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, 4 people were killed in a shooting attack in the Jaffa neighborhood of Tel Aviv on Tuesday, Israeli police say in a statement. They said 2 shooters were neutralized and that the families of the victims had been notified. Footage posted to social media showed gunmen getting off at a light rail station and opening fire. Israel's MDA ambulance service said it received a report at 7:01 p.m. of the people injured by gunfire. Medics and paramedics provided on-site medical treatments to a number of wounded people with varying degrees of injuries, including some who were unconscious, MDA says. Iranians gathered on Tuesday evening in central Tehran to celebrate their country's airstrikes against Israel. Hundreds of people waved Lebanese and Palestinians, Iranian and Hezbollah flags, as some distributed sweets for those in attendance. Earlier in the evening, Iran fired a salvo of ballistic missiles at Israel in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's Hezbollah allies in Lebanon. Alarms sounded across Israel and explosions could be heard in Israel or in Jerusalem and the Jordan River Valley after Israelis piled into bomb shelters. Israel said more than 180 missiles were launched into Israel from Iran, and Israeli airstrike defenses were activated to intercept them. U.S. Navy warships helped intercept some projectiles fired by Iran at Israel, a U.S. defense official told Reuters. Israel's military later sounded the all clear and said residents were free to leave their shelters. Iran's Revolutionary Guards said Iran had launched tens of missiles at Israel and that if Israel retaliated, Tehran's response would be more crushing and ruinous. Tehran targeted 3 Israeli military bases in its attack, Iran's state news agency says. Meanwhile, the United States on Tuesday called on every nation in the world to join it in condemning Iran's attack on Israel after Tehran fired a salvo of ballistic missiles at Israel, which the State Department said was a brazen and unacceptable attack. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said Washington at this time was not aware of any damage to U.S. facilities in the attack. He said the U.S. had no warning from the government of Iran that they were going to launch such an attack. Call our makeup artist, Mishidi.
Our,
Makeup artist, Mishidi.
like that car.
Call her quickly. said on Tuesday that the two U.S. Navy destroyers fired about a dozen intercepted Iranian missiles aimed at Israel. Pentagon spokesperson Major General Patrick Ryder told reporters that no other U.S. military assets were used to shoot down the missiles, which were all fired from inside Iran. Ryder condemned Iran's missile assault on Israel, which involved approximately 200 ballistic missiles targeting multiple locations. The attack marked a significant ballistic missile attack by Iran against Israel. He emphasized the U.S. called on Iran to halt further aggression, including actions taken by its proxy forces. Ryder clarified that while the U.S. had been monitoring Iran's threats for some time, there was no prior warning of the attack. He highlighted the ongoing efforts to prevent a broader regional conflict. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said Britain stands with Israel on Tuesday after Iran launched a wave of missiles in retaliation for Israel's incursion into Lebanon. A spokesperson for Starmer's office said the Prime Minister spoke with his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday afternoon, and the leaders discussed the escalating situation across the Middle East. Starmer also spoke with Jordan's King Abdullah, and they underscored the urgent need for a ceasefire in both Lebanon and Gaza. U.S. President Joe Biden said on Tuesday that there was an active discussion ongoing over how Israel would respond to an Iranian ballistic missile attack, that the consequences for Tehran remain to be seen. Biden, speaking at the White House, said that he would be speaking with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He said Iran's attack appeared to have been effective. think this thing is not well carved out. But the United Nations to take a stand. I think it's to take a stand. Okay, I got it. Earlier on Signature Morning, Vin Martin Zilo expressed concerns over looming Third World War, called on the United Nations to take a stand in resolving the escalating crisis between Israel and Iran.
Saying that, look, we need to approach this with carefulness. This is a complicated situation. It's a complicated situation that a lot of interests across the world would try to take advantage of. Let me explain. You know that Russia has been having a running battle in Ukraine with the West. Not too long ago, it got so bad that Russia had threatened it would use its nuclear weapons if armaments that are supplied by the West is used by Ukraine in attacking Russia. So you can imagine how what is playing out is to the advantage if they really want to take that advantage. Because this is okay, you guys were acting as proxy for Ukraine. Maybe this time we need to support Iran. So it is a very complicated issue that every reasonable person anywhere in the world must be calling for caution. Unfortunately, the United Nations that is calling for caution is being, accused and abused by Israel. If you saw the reaction of Israel when the UN Secretary General Guterres called for a cessation of hostilities and all that, they were really, really mad. Do I see a third world war? Maybe not. But if what is going on is not stopped, if what is going on is not controlled, if what is going on is not brought to a round table to see how it can be resolved, a third world war may not be very far away. But I don't see it happening tomorrow. I don't see it happening the day after. But if the right things are done, if America can, play its role of being an arbiter in this crisis and not completely take sides with one party. If Russia would also look at it and not look at the advantages they are going to take from it, and if the permanent members of the United Nations would look at this as a challenge for the world, maybe we'll get out of it without a third world war. Well, Africa is divided. Of course, you know that South Africa, from the beginning of this crisis, has taken a position. For South Africa, they think that Israel is not doing the right thing. South Africa thinks that what is happening in Gaza is genocide. And they not only said it at the United Nations, they went to court to prove their case, and a number of countries joined them. The African group is divided. Some are not coming out to condemn the parties. They are just in between the lines. But what is happening, if it escalates, will not only affect the rest of the world, it will also affect Africa. And the extent and the kind of damage and the kind of repercussions, it's better imagined than seen. So I think that Africa should join other forces around the world and do what they can to pull their influence to get countries like the United States, countries like France, countries like the United Kingdom, to hold Israel down and see. If you remember what happened, this is not actually the first time this year that Iranians had shot missiles or rockets into Israel. If you remember, not too long ago, there was a killing, and I remember in that instance when Iran fired into Israel, the United States and friendly countries of Israel held them down and said, please don't escalate this. And that's what I was thinking would happen. That you see the kind of belligerence that we are seeing America leading at this point. I am afraid whether Israel can be convinced to, calm down, as we say in Nigeria. But if that doesn't happen, honestly, with wars, you know how it starts, and when it starts, you don't know how and when it will end. This is really a very, very complicated situation. We had a conversation a couple of days ago, just as the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly, was rounding up. And we're talking about the decline in relevance and power of the United Nations. And I did make a point that part of what is going on in the world and a lot of problems around the world, the conflicts are intractable, is because of the interests of members of the United Nations Security Council. In the Security Council, there's a division between those that stay with the United States and those that are with Russia. China and Russia, most of the times, are voting and working together. France, United Kingdom, and USA are most times working together. So let's take this as an example. If the 5 members of the United Nations said there must be a ceasefire, of course there will be a ceasefire. But in this case, Russia condemns it. Russia says, why should you do that? The United States will condemn the other party. And then their interests are playing out. And this has been the problem of the world since 1945. They don't seem to agree because of their personal interests. Of course, you know that the United States is a strong ally of Israel. There's nothing you can do to take the United States away from Israel. And you know that whoever the United States is supporting becomes an enemy of Russia. So that has also contributed to the declines of the United Nations. It's Georgia talk every day in New York, but do they have the powers, to make sure that the decision they take will work? They don't have such powers. As long as we have these 5 nations fighting among themselves,
Also, many Iranians were seen queuing up outside of petrol stations in the capital of Tehran on Tuesday as fears of a wider conflict set in, hours after the country launched missiles at regional arch enemy Israel. Fearful of future shortages, motorists flocked to fuel their cars as Israel and Washington vowed a sharp response. Iran fired ballistic missiles earlier in the evening in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's Hezbollah allies in Lebanon. Israel said more than 180 missiles were launched into Israel from Iran, and Israeli air defenses were activated to intercept them. U.S. Navy warships fired about a dozen interceptors against Iranian missiles headed towards Israel, the Pentagon said. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said the assault was a retaliation for recent Israeli killings of militant leaders and aggression in Lebanon and Gaza. Its forces used hypersonic Fatah missiles for the first time, and 90% of its missiles successfully hit their targets in Israel, the Revolutionary Guard said. No injuries were reported in Israel, but 1 man was killed in the occupied West Bank, authorities there say. Meanwhile, Ukraine's military intelligence agency released video on Wednesday showing Ukrainians exiting plane in Poland after being evacuated from Lebanon. Ukraine's military intelligence agency said 134 Ukrainian citizens were evacuated. Israel was hit on Tuesday evening by rockets launched from Iran following a ground incursion of the Israeli armed forces into South Lebanon, where they clashed with the Iran-backed Hezbollah group. The operation followed intense airstrikes that have devastated Hezbollah's leadership, including longtime chief Hassan Nasrallah, who was killed in Beirut last week. Meanwhile, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol on Wednesday ordered military aircraft to be deployed immediately to evacuate its citizens from Israel and other parts of the Middle East amid escalating tension, his office said. Yoon met with his national security and economic advisors over the Middle East conflict and called for a swift but measured response to an impact on country's energy supply, trade, and supply chains, his office says. Earlier on Wednesday, South Korea's foreign ministry urged its citizens in Israel and Lebanon to immediately leave by any means available. Government data for 2023 showed that there are 572 South Koreans in Israel, including permanent residents and Israeli passport holders, and 214 in Lebanon. German Navy ships that transited the Taiwan Straits last month received close scrutiny and repeated radio messages from Chinese vessels, the German task group's commander says on Wednesday. Rear Admiral Axel Strauss says that FGS Baden-Württemberg and logistics ship FGS Frankfurt, Maine were shadowed by Chinese surface vessels who sent radio messages that the South China Sea waters were theirs by law. Adding the frigates, the German ships responded that they were in the international waters exercising freedom of navigation. Germany's ambassador to Singapore, Bettina Fangano, said the ship's presence was important because it showed her country's commitments to partners in the region, adding that it has vital interest in the Indo-Pacific. Typhoon Krathon caused disruptions in Kaohsiung on Wednesday, with public transportation services suspended and many businesses closed. Business owners like Wang Pao Chua were taking measures to protect their shops and equipment, but faced pressure due to lack of customers and ongoing expenses. Officials in the key port city of Kaohsiung, set to be in the eye of the storm, told people to stay home and avoid the sea, rivers, and mountains, warning of the repeat of 1977's Typhoon Thelma that killed 37 and devastated the city of 2.7 million people. Although the typhoon has weakened, the threats from a storm surge, strong winds, and rain remain as it slowly makes its way towards Taiwan's coast, weather forecasters say. Meanwhile, piles of garbage dots the seashores of Libya's Qom city after a major government-operated landfill was closed earlier this year. The Kaga landfill, which was operating for nearly 50 years, has been causing environmental problems for people living nearby. City residents say the garbage in the landfill has been releasing toxic pollutants in the air, leading to the spread of some diseases. Even after the closure of the landfill following protests by the local community, those living nearby say it still poses an environmental risk because the remaining hard and organic waste there has not been processed properly. Lacking alternatives, city residents started dumping their garbage around the city's seashores, which led to the devastating scenes around the area. The manager of the city's cleaning services says lack of needing resources, including equipment to remove and process garbage, as well as little wages paid to workers, have led to the service providers being not capable of doing their jobs properly. Claudia Sheinbaum was sworn in as Mexico's first woman president on Tuesday, vowing to ensure that Latin America's number two economy remains a secure destination for international investment. Sheinbaum, a 62-year-old scientist and former mayor of Mexico, took the oath of office and received the presidential sash in a boisterous ceremony in Mexico's Congress, which marks the start of her six-year term. Sheinbaum used her first speech as head of state to address investor concerns after the passing of a judicial reform pushed by her predecessor, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. She reiterated the central bank would be autonomous and that a reasonable debt to GDP ratio would be maintained. On Pemex, Sheinbaum said the company will look to maintain daily oil production at 1.8 million barrels, about the same level they are currently. At the inauguration ceremony, workers of the judiciary protested the controversial reform recently approved by the Mexican Congress. The judicial reform, under which judges will be elected by popular vote, has scared investors and drawn criticism from the U.S. ambassador to Mexico, who said it threatened the rule of law. Still to come, petrol imports dropped by 3.58 billion liters after subsidy removal. NURTW official gives 25 million naira petrol to tricycle operators in Lagos. Do stay with us for detail. Welcome back. You're watching Global News on Signature Television. Niger State Emergency Management Agency, NSEMA, has confirmed the reports that a boat conveying no fewer than 300 passengers capsized on River Niger upstream, Jabba Dam, at Wajibo community in Mokwa local government area. It stated that so far about 150 travelers have been rescued, while efforts are on to rescue the remaining persons. The incident occurred last night, October 1st, 2024, at about 8:30 p.m. The agency, in a statement signed by its Director General Abdullahi Baba Ara, said the boat was sailing from Mundi community with a population of almost 300 passengers. He explained that the travelers were mostly women and children for the Maulid celebration at Bajibo. The DG disclosed that currently SEMA is directing and monitoring search and rescue operations in collaboration with the State Ministry of Transport, Mokwa Local Government Emergency Committee, brave local drivers, and other community volunteers. And elsewhere, the National Bureau of Statistics has stated that Nigeria recorded a reduction in petrol importation following the removal of fuel subsidy by President Bola Tinubu in May 2023. It also said the total of fuel imports reduced to 20.30 billion liters in 2023 from the 23.54 billion liters recorded in 2022, showing a decrease of 13.77% year on year. It disclosed this in its latest petroleum product distribution statistics released by the agency on Tuesday. As it is noted that petrol imports dropped by 3.58 billion liters in the second half of 2023 compared to the year's first half. It said the country imported 8.36 billion liters of premium motor spirit petrol in the first half of 2023, a significant decrease from the 11.94 billion liters imported in H1 2023, marking a 29.99% reduction. A breakdown for the monthly volume of fuel imports in 2023 showed that 2.09 billion was brought in January, reduced to 1.99 billion in February, increased to 2.29 billion in March, 1.91 billion in April, and 2.01 billion in May. It was 1.64 billion in June, 1.45 billion in July, 1.09 billion in August, 1.21 billion in September, 1.16 billion in October, 1.55 billion in November, and 1.88 billion in December. These figures highlight the impact of the subsidy removal on the volume of petrol imported into the country. Similarly, the Bureau stated that the volume of automotive gas oil, also known as diesel, imported into Nigeria rose to 4.94 billion liters in 2023 from 4 billion liters in 2022. The statistics also show that 109.39 million liters of AGO was locally produced in 2023, representing a 6.76% rise from 102.47 million liters produced in 2022. Upon assumption of office on May 29, 2023, President Bola Tinubu, during his inauguration speech, announced a total removal of subsidy on petrol price. Shortly after, fuel prices soared across Nigeria, with some stations selling PMS at prices as high as 700 naira per liter. According to the 2023 full-year foreign trade data, Nigeria's spending on fuel import decreased by approximately 2.6% from 7.7 trillion naira in 2022 to 7.5 trillion naira in 2023. In terms of semi-annual comparison, the country incurred 3.5 trillion naira in fuel importation costs in the second half of 2023, representing a 10.26% decrease compared to the 3.9 trillion recorded in the first half of the year. Also, in the first 6 months of 2024, the country's petrol imports bill stood at 5.8 trillion naira. When compared to the same period of 2023, the country's petrol imports bill increased by 87.0% from 3.1 trillion naira. The Minister of Information, Idris Mohammed, earlier said that Nigeria's domestic consumption dropped by 50% from 2 billion liters following the removal of fuel subsidy. Mohammed said that the decline in importation suggests that these imports are being redirected to destinations other than Nigeria. Nigeria Tuesday marks her 64th independence anniversary. In Abuja, residents moved around without the usual excitement as anger, frustration, and feeling of despair were seen everywhere. Some who said there was no need for celebration given the current hardship and high cost of living in the country. Senator TV correspondent Nasiru Usman now reports.
Tinubu said his administration was winning the fight against banditry and kidnapping, and that some 300 Boko Haram terrorists and bandit commanders were eliminated in the past 16 months of his administration.
I am happy to announce to you, within 1 year, our government has eliminated many Boko Haram and bandit commanders faster than as of the last count. Over 300 Boko Haram and bandit commanders have been eliminated by our gallant troops in the northeast, northwest, and some other part of the country. The central concern of our people today is the high cost of living, especially food costs. This concern is shared by many around the globe as prices and the cost of living continue to rise worldwide. My fellow Nigerians, please be assured that we are any measures to reduce the cost of living at home. We are playing our part by supplying fertilizer and making tractors and other farm equipment available. Last week, the Federal Executive Council approved establishing a local assembly plant for 2,000 John Deere tractors, combined harvesters, disc riders, motor plows, and other farm equipment. The plant has a completion time of 6 months.
Abuja residents called on the president to address the high cost of living, the galloping inflation for the teeming Nigerian youth.
Nigeria at 64, I don't see anything to celebrate. It is a disappointment because a man of 64 in Nigeria, the way Nigeria is shouldn't be proud of himself. At least a man of 64 should be close to a grandfather. So we are even not like a toddler, talk more of a grandfather. So it's very, very appalling. You don't need to go and scat and destroy somebody's shop or go out, move to the National Assembly, stand there and protest. They are the people we are paying them with our taxpayers' money, so they should serve us, not serve in their pockets. The president is telling us that they are giving honors to what do you call it now, to the vice president. What we should be hearing on Independence Day. That's not what we should be hearing on Independence Day. On Independence Day, we should hear, is it that he's now aware that fuel is more than, in fact, in the East, fuel is almost 2,000. Is it that he's now aware? In Abuja here, when you go downtown, you're buying fuel 1.5. Yesterday, I bought fuel to fuel my generator, it's 1.5. The barber close to me cannot work again because of the cost of fuel.
We don't have any economic in Nigeria now. We don't have any policy about economic. We just have somebody who is ruling without any plan. He's just ruling on how we will get benefits. And government is not about getting profit, it's about serving the people. But you have somebody who's just looking for how you can get profit and not serving the people.
I would advise the president to just please, if it is work, like to help us, that is the Nigerian youth, give us jobs so that we know that maybe the Nigeria will be better tomorrow, as they say.
I don't feel like there is something to celebrate. We are not happy in this country. So everything, the price of everything has gone up, even the price of transportation, price of fuel also. So we are not happy in this country. What I'm thinking is that the president should revert the petroleum subsidy, one, and there should be price regulation. The price of commodity, they should regulate it.
Forget about this clothes I'm putting on. I'm not eating this morning. Fuel is very, very expensive. And we all know in this country, there is one thing that if it goes high, everything will go high. That's fuel. You can see, back then, 2015, 2014, 2013, celebrating independence, you see everywhere we joke, everybody will be happy, you see everybody, going everywhere, going out, people taking their families out for, for some enjoyment. But you can see the streets today. We don't even know anything is happening in the country, and we are celebrating the country. So it's really, really sad. It's really sad. I don't even know, if they ask me, I will say we don't have independence, because we are like a slave in our country.
Compared to the previous Nigeria, so far, this is the worst Nigeria I've ever seen in my life. Since I was born, this is the worst of Nigeria. So imagine, during Baba that just left, Baba Buhari rising, we said it's too much. Now, the lowest Nigeria rice is around 90,000. The lowest. We have of Nigeria rice of over 100,000 in the market. Not talking of the foreign one. So, in fact, don't let us talk much about that. This is the worst of Nigeria so far.
The president also announced plans for a 30 days conference for the youth in the country to discuss the challenges confronting them nationwide and come out with recommendations for considerations of his administration.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, has called for adequate supervision and quality assurance in public schools across the country in order to return the education sector to its glory days. Abbas spoke when he hosted students from 6 public secondary schools in the FCT for an interaction. He decried the lack of proper regulation and the proliferation of private schools, which he said had led to the unacceptable decay in public schools across the country. The Speaker observed that even teachers in public schools now have their children in private schools because they don't believe in the quality of education in the schools they teach in. He advised the students to imbibe the culture of hard work, which is an aspect of patriotism, saying that though their generation has access to smart ways of doing things, that has also made them to cultivate the habit of following shortcuts to success. He stressed the importance of unity in diversity and urged the students to love their country as they love themselves, saying the concept of loving one's neighbor as oneself eschews any element of ethnicity, tribalism, and religious sentiments. As part of activities marking Nigeria's 64th independence anniversary and his 59th birthday, the speaker also visited some internally displaced persons camp at the Kabusa community in the Federal Capital Territory, where he gave out a total of 1,000 bags of 10 kg rice, 200 cartons of noodles, and over 800 pieces of clothes and bedsheets. Meanwhile, the federal government has distributed 2,000 compressed natural gas CNG-powered tricycles to use as part of the commitment by President Bola Tinubu to alleviate the daily struggles of young persons. The Minister of Youth Development, Dr. Jamila Ibrahim, said this in Abuja on Tuesday during the first phase distribution of the tricycles. Ibrahim said the tricycles will go a long way in easing the transportation challenges faced by citizens across the country. According to her, the NYIF will provide the financial backbone for many young innovators to thrive, boosting not only youth employment but also economy at large. The Minister of the State for Youth Development, Ayodele Olawande, said that the country has both informal and formal young people, and the creation of Ministry of Youth was the best thing that happened to young people in Nigeria. According to him, the collaboration will go a long way in increasing employment for young people. The chairman, Tricycle Owners and Operators of Nigeria, Lagos Branch, C. Aziz Abiola, on Tuesday, offered free petrol worth 25 million naira to 5,000 commercial tricycle operators in Lagos. More than 5,000 commercial tricycle operators benefited from the free petrol worth 25 million naira in commemoration of the 64th Independence Day. The exercise took place at Rain Oil Filling Station, Kola, Alabado, Fatbem's Filling Station, Ayubo, Ibaja, and the NNPC Filling Station at Command Area in Abule area in Lagos. Abiola, in his remarks, appreciated God for giving him the privilege to embark on such a humanitarian service. Meanwhile, the Enugu State Governor, Peter Amba, has enjoined Nigerians not to be downcast or succumb to the current challenging situation in the country. Amba gave the advice during a special banquet organized by the state government at Government House, Enugu, as part of activities to mark Nigeria's 64th Independence Day. He advised citizens of the state and the nation at large to keep hope alive, assuring them that the current efforts to reposition the country would ultimately yield fruits.
Nigerians for this milestone. I believe that our journey has not always been smooth, but the unity we enjoy today is a testament to the resilience we have as a people. And so, despite all the social, economic challenges that we are faced today, I want to enjoy all of us not to be downcast. We must not succumb to the forces of cynicism. So what we
Cynicism.
have to do, and I want to
should
also
not
join the president,
succumb to the forces of cynicism.
urging us
Peter Amba speaking some English.
imbibe the virtue of hope. There is certain
Governor Amba, who described the independence anniversary as a milestone, commended Nigerians for their resilience and doggedness, even in the face of overwhelming and excruciating circumstances. Some dignitaries at the banquet shared their thoughts on Nigeria at 64, emphasizing the importance of unity and togetherness towards nation building.
Very simple. Nigeria is a beleaguered nation in checkered history. We have had the strategy of all manner of balances, manner of challenges, with deadly in the nation. And most of these challenges are man-made. 70% of the prayers we say, asking in different mosques and churches, are problems that could be resolved by human beings. So we need persons in leadership positions that we struck off that debris of sentimentality and religious bigotry. But due to corruption, love for power, and other problems have been down. But today, in Enugu, for instance, power resonates with a man who has the people in mind. And what people are looking for a person, they do not want government to reduce the politician level. They want profligates out of government. They want
The Enugu State government says it will continue to make education the major driver of the economic development of the state. The Secretary to the State Government, Professor Chidebere Onya, reviewed the commitment while addressing pupils and students of various schools in the state who converged at the Michael Okpara Square as part of activities to mark Nigeria's 64th independence anniversary. Correspondent Chinemere Mike Bunam was part of the celebrations.
The atmosphere at Michael Okpara Square was that of excitement and patriotism as Nigeria, as both the young and old came together to mark the nation's 64 years of independence. Addressing the gathering, the Secretary to the State Government, Professor Chidebere Onya, said Nigeria has immense opportunities which can only be realized by improving the quality and access to education in the country. He encouraged all stakeholders to work collaboratively for excellence in education, creativity, and technology. He urged the youth and students to stay focused and the teachers to continue their noble work with unwavering commitment.
Let us remember that independence is not merely a historical event. It is an ongoing journey that requires our collective efforts. The future of Nigeria clearly depends on each of us. Our Independence Day clearly demonstrates the power of unity. We can build a nation that stands tall among the global communities, guided by the principles of unity, peace, and development. Let us renew our commitment to the growth and progress of Nigeria, a nation full of promises. With our investment in education in Enugu State and our collective determination, we can ensure a bright and prosperous future for generations to come. Happy 64th Independence Day to all of you, and indeed, our tomorrow is here.
Commission power of unity and
for emancipation from cycles of poverty and underdevelopment. Amidst the struggles and the suffering, national economic development in Enugu State, we still have a lot of milestones to celebrate because in the past year we have made remarkable progress.
some citizens share their hopes and aspirations for the country.
You can see that things are not going today. There's a lot of things going on. Compare Nigeria somebody I grew up in Enugu. I know how things were here. Even for transportation facilities here, I know what it costs me to get. As far as life is in existence, I thank Almighty God. We left everything to Him. I know that no.
And that's the news this hour. Many thanks for watching. Charles Pius is my name. Good afternoon.
Nah, it's too long too much.
But it's actually because of that interview now. That's that's the reason why.
That interview alone is about 8 minutes. See where we even stop.
Where will you stop?
We stop on number 23.
23.
Yeah.
Lagos State.
Yes.
I will try, sir. So if we have 8 more minutes left.
We have finished. If not for that.
Yes, we would have.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank
There's
you.
water on that table.
Uh-uh.